Hello there and welcome. In this video, I want to introduce to you 7 different build ideas and strategies for the industrious culture. We're going to be working around different concepts that just work well with them and can help you to flesh out a really good build. As I'm currently revisiting all the old cultures of Age of Wonders 4, I hope that this video will give you some food for thought, and it is something that is actively going for the newest version. So here goes. Number 1 that I find extremely good going with the Industrious, and I find that pretty obvious, but I like to have something obvious on point 1. That is the synergy between buffing, supporting, and healing these guys due to their bolstering stat. Whenever a Industrious unit gets smacked, they gain a stack of bolstered defenses in one way or another. This means that if we just put up some buffing on top of that to increase the damage via, for example, order tomes that are pretty good at strengthening units, or we just go for something like the Tome of Warding's extra defenses, it all works really well because with the Industrious culture we have access to one hell of a spell. At least I personally find this one really massive, and that is bolstering, Steel Fury Chant. Steel Fury Chant will strip off all the defenses of our units and turn them into attacks. So in short, if you can stack up bolstered defense stacks, you can turn them into offenses, and any other buffs just straight up booster up what you already got. So in short, healing and buffing these guys is a very, very grateful road, and in some way or another, I always implement that onto my Industrious builds. But let's move on over to number 2 and get to the more interesting things. Due to the bolstering mechanic, I found another real interesting thing happening. We are really, really good at swarming tactics and trying to take everything down with lots of small units very early on. Actually, you can play the Industrious very aggressively, war-wise, early on, and I was quite shocked how well that worked. This is because your dudes die relatively slow, and the combination of Anvil Guards and Arbalists is a solid frontline, with a huge damage dealer behind that. This is already really good tier 1 material, considering that the Arbalists are optional cavalry. They can also be implemented into faster builds. Really good stuff. But we don't stop here. We can put that bolstering stat onto any other tier 1 via the cultural enchantment that the Industrious have, the Rune of Industry. So all of the tier 1s that you can acquire elsewhere suddenly turn stupidly tanky. If you can't heal them up, like I said in number 1, that is why I find buffing and supporting so powerful, you have a really hard to kill tier 1 roster that happens to have a tendency to grow ever stronger if they get smacked, if you use Steel Fury Chant, for example. Moving on to number 3, a summoning strategy. There's a really interesting thing here. For one, tier 1 units, I already pointed that out, are pretty strong, so summoning any form of elemental units, for example, or the many other low-tier summoning things that you can't do in tier 1, and this expands to everything beyond that, are really good with these guys, because we have prospecting. Prospecting is another really nice mechanic of these guys. Basically everything which is a mountain or somewhat badlands can be prospected by your scouts and produce tremendous amounts of production or gold. That means we have super easy access to mana producing buildings, because if you have all this gold and the production points rolling in, it is super easy to just focus on mana building things and spam out those summoning units. Pick up a cultural trait that reduces the summoning costs on top of that, and you are already well on the way to swarm the map with resolute summoned units. It is a thing that works horribly well. I've done Industrious Elemental builds in the past, and they were among the most volatile and powerful things I created because of the synergy of prospecting and the capacity to fuel a huge army right off the bat. Moving on to number 4, stat drain tactics. So there's a couple of things in this game that allow you to slowly shave down the enemy's stats. Be it in the Materium side of things, the Tome of Enchantment's Sundering Blades, which enables all your melee dudes to slowly shave down their physical resistances, or going over to the Shadow side of things, and picking up Doom Herald to slowly grind down the enemy's morale, and then pick up really nice and hard-hitting things on that end. There are different options. Ideally, I think they are best combined. I love to play a high morale on my side and destroying the enemy morale build, and combine that with the resistance destruction I mentioned. If you can get your hands on units that have this trait innately, some of them just happen to have that, even the better. But all in all, this tanking and spanking strategy, like I like to call it, is extremely effective if you happen to debuff the enemy passively while doing so. You can also pick up body traits on your culture, like there's a couple of them that are just applied to the enemy by either your units just standing next to them, or applied to the enemy by hitting your units. Revenge things also work quite well into this vein. So just to your own liking. There's a lot of things, and I find this a really power tactics for the Industrious. Now, let's move on over to number 5, ranged builds. There is a stupidly good synergy with the Industrious towards any form of ranged builds, be it physical ranged, and picking up unit enchantments that enchant arrows, and picking up tomes that give us later better archers than the tier 1s we got, or dipping right into battle mages and going into a different venue. Battle mages have the advantage that you splice in some much needed elemental damage into your culture, because the Industrious is all physical damage otherwise. Either way, this works because of the massive frontline that you have ingrained into your culture. You don't suffer any issues in keeping your backline safe if you have bastions and anvil guards at your disposal, topped off with halberdiers. You can just build up a wall in front of your backliners and let them wreak havoc upon the enemy. The Industrious are really good at that, and on top of that, we can transform suffered damage into healing back into our backline via Strength from Steel. Strength from Steel does transform bolstered stacks into healing, and if ever your backline gets smacked, they also have a couple of these stacks, and that means you can heal them, strengthen them, and revenge. It is pretty nasty how hard your frontline can sustain impact while your backline is also somewhat sturdier than the others. I really like that, and therefore ranged strategies work really well with the Industrious, and I gotta mention it one more time, those obelisks kick ass. Seriously, they are powerful units. Their single shot hits like a truck, they can punch people out of their stances from afar, and if you start buffing them, their only downside is their really low resistances. Let's move on over to number 6. Another strategic stance that I didn't see coming, but it is there, is expansionism. You have two things working for yourself, and you don't need to pick up any specific tomes for that, actually. That is quite shocking. For one, your economy is stupidly strong due to prospecting, which leads to the fact that we can easily sustain 3 cities earlier than anybody else. On top of that, due to the Industrious buildings, we have easier access to high defense structures. We also can buy buildings cheaper than other people. All in all, we can play an expansionistic playstyle because we have a solid swarmy tier 1 army, we can defend our cities much better than other people can, and we even have the flippin' gold to back that up, unlike other cultures. So land grabbing strategies are actually shockingly effective on the Industrious, and while I always saw them as people that just play tall, build a small empire and fix it up like crazy, there is a huge potential in playing aggressively, straightforward, right off the bat. You can, of course, supplement that with tomes that fit to that stance, be it either providing yourself a edge in battle via Tome of the Horde. Spawnkin goes really hard on the Industrious, in my opinion at least, or you pick up cultural traits that make it easier to expand. This lady here, by the way, is a default culture, which brought me up to that whole idea. It wasn't even me, it's been the developers. The combination of great builders and adept settlers gave me a huge momentum to get started with. Go crazy in that end, I discovered just for myself that expansionistic strategies go much better than I originally expected. And now let's get to number 7. Another interesting caveat about all these things that I've mentioned before in the video. The Industrious excel at playing around heroes. Many things are a reason for that. For one, the heroes also gain the bolstering stat, at least if they come from your own culture. The other thing is that you have plentiful access to artifacts. They're literally everywhere. When you prospect, you get artifacts galore. The next thing is, due to the ruthless expansionism that we can go for, we can play similar like the barbarians and just set up outposts on magic materials that we like, or on wonders that we like. We can ruthlessly defend these with swarms of units, stupidly fortified outposts because we just happen to have the gold to afford it, and we also have therefore good access to artifact forging because we have all those magic materials theoretically easier accessible than other people's. Than other people do. You can also add in dragon rulers, for example, to cash in a huge amount of income from all the artifacts that you plunder. It's also pretty nice. I also see a huge potential for cult of personality and the cultural traits, or anything else like reclaimers that gives you an edge in terms of item creation. Giant Kings also come to mind as they enable you to kickstart that whole hero thing a lot easier. In short, since we are already able to do such huge buffs to our units, we can do all the same things to our heroes, and that makes the heroes of the Industrious culture stupidly hard to kill. They get really nice equipment if you want to force it and can force it, and yeah, that's something that I find more prevalent than in other cultures. It isn't something that you can specifically bolster with tomes, though, because heroes have a different evolution chain, so to speak. What you can do, though, is to make sure that you pick up heroes as early as possible. You can pump Imperium to increase your hero cap quicker, which is really something worth doing. You have the goal to recruit those people, after all, which is really something nice. And if you need another gold infusion or more economy buffs, Materium Tree is here for you. We can go even deeper into these shenanigans. All in all, I found this culture to be very, very compatible to such strategies, and I find it really worth mentioning. Now, that's been 7 ideas. I hope it was helpful for you. I really, really think the Industrious are one of the most powerful cultures still until this very day because of the extreme speed they can have in the early game via prospecting. Don't sleep on that. I just wanted to point that out at the last point. Feel free to add in your thoughts and things that you think about the Industrious culture I might have missed or you think that must be mentioned. And of course, leave a like, leave a subscribe. Feel free to support the channel financially via Ko-fi or any other given means downstairs below. With a huge thanks to the community for all the help that I get. And a huge thanks to you for watching this video up until the very end. Appreciate your time and see you on the next one.